And welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Camp Myers. Glad you're with us this week. This is a show where we get together once a week to meet interesting people or discuss topical issues, and we welcome back two old friends today.
Yes, do you have your seatbelt fastened? We welcome back John Coyle and Mike Mccarvel, and they're going to be talking to us today about should drugs be legalized. I don't think they're going to agree. It's just a just shot in the dark guess, but they're going to be entertaining us, I know, but giving us a lot of good information by the same token.
A controversial topic that does not seem to be going away, but are there trends? Is this an evolving issue? We'll get into that today on The Verdict.
What if America had its own clean energy? Abundant and available for the next century or more, and possibly indefinitely. A true 21st century energy source would cut carbon emissions in half and do every living thing a world of good. That clean American energy exists. It's natural gas, and Chesapeake is its #1 explorer. For producing clean electricity and fueling our cars without imported oil, natural gas saves money and the environment. Proving the answer to this country's energy needs is right under our feet, and we're not running out. Clean, abundant, affordable, American natural gas. Doing a world of good for our communities, our economy, and our irreplaceable planet Earth.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Camp Myers. Ken's going to introduce today's guest.
Today we're pleased to welcome back two old friends to the show. On my right is John Coyle. John's making his 11th appearance on The Verdict. And as a matter of fact, John was on our very first show over 8 years ago talking about should Terry Nichols be retried or not. John did his undergraduate work and his law work at Oklahoma City University. He's been over 30 years as a practicing lawyer in Oklahoma City. Is one of, if not the leading criminal defense lawyer in the state. He is a legal analyst for ABC News, for Fox, and for other television outlets from time to time. He was named Oklahoma's Outstanding Criminal Defense Lawyer, and he's always exciting and interesting to have join us on The Verdict. John, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Glad to have you. On my left is the leader in appearances on The Verdict. Mike Mccarvel is making his 13th appearance on The Verdict. Mike is a former talk show host and news director at KTOK, has advised a number of political campaigns from time to time over the years on the right and wrong things to do. He writes a very popular blog, the name for which we will give you in the final segment of the show. He has previously appeared with John Coyle on this very show in August of 2001 discussing the same topic, and we're going to see if they've changed their minds any since then. And back by popular demand is Mike Mccarvel for his 13th, and we hope lucky 13th appearance.
I was going to say, I hope that's lucky 13. I hate to think it's unlucky. John, it's a pleasure to be with you again, sir.
Well, it's nice to be here, Mike.
Deja
it's good
vu
to see
all
you.
over again.
Sure
Neither
is.
one of us in the last 8 years have aged a bit, unlike these two birds.
Yeah. Why don't we just step out and get a cup of coffee?
I'm not sure we remember being here
Yeah, there you
before,
go,
8 years ago.
Well, I had a hard time finding the studio, that'll tell you anything.
We've moved around a little
You
bit.
have,
since
yeah.
then. Hey, John, the basic question, should we legalize drugs, all drugs, some drugs? What's your basic thoughts?
Well, I think we ought to legalize all of them eventually, and I think that's what will happen in the next 25 years or so. I think it's really important for the American justice system. I have seen in the 35 years that I've been a criminal defense lawyer, I've seen constitutional rights erode, but I've seen the prisons fill up. Oklahoma now has more women in prison than any other state, and over half of them are in there for drug-related crimes. And it's not making any progress.
Wouldn't chaos erupt, John? Wouldn't there be chaos in the streets? Wouldn't drugs be everywhere? Wouldn't grade school kids have drugs? Wouldn't middle school kids have drugs? If you legalized them all, why wouldn't drugs just be in every other person's hip pocket?
Well, when Franklin Roosevelt became the president, the first thing he did was start to fix the banks, kind of like Obama has. The second thing he did was he legalized alcohol and allowed the sale of alcohol. And since that time, chaos hadn't erupted. Alcohol is by far the most dangerous drug in our society. It kills hundreds times more than all the drugs combined, and you can go and buy it anywhere. Alcohol is the killer, but it's legal, and we didn't have chaos from it.
Well, let me jump in, John, if I may. I think, first of all, I think we ought to conduct a discussion kind of on two levels. One has to do with marijuana and its possible legalization, and the other has to do with the hard drugs. Now, you mentioned the prison population, and I ran across a couple of statistics as I was doing some research this morning. The Justice Department reports that most inmates, 77.4% male and 83.6% female, have a drug history, and the majority were under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time of their current offense. So if we legalized all drugs, I mean, would you see that statistic changing, going up, going down?
Well, I think it'd go way down because we could have the money to spend on treatment. Now in the criminal justice system, if you want to get somebody treatment, it's very difficult to find it. It's very difficult. They just don't have it because they don't have any money because we're too busy locking everybody up. And when we lock up, for instance, when we lock a woman up who has children, then someone has to take care of those children. I mean, it's a very expensive process. This war that we started is very expensive, and we're the ones that pay it. The taxpayers pay the tab.
John, I know in the Oklahoma prison system, we do have drug rehabilitation programs, and I know from personal experience, not personal experience, but family type experience, that these programs, they're well-intentioned. They conduct them at several of our correctional facilities, and they just don't seem to work, where they take people who are addicted to drugs of one kind or another, and they work with them in a year or two, and then they're released, and whammo, they're right back on the streets, using, buying, selling, and they wind up right back in prison again. Is more money the answer? I mean, yeah, perhaps if we legalize drugs, marijuana in particular, and tax them, there would be more money for drug rehab programs. I just wonder about the effectiveness of it.
Well, there would be a lot more money and a lot more opportunity for somebody to get some sort of meaningful rehabilitation other than just being put in the prison system. And they do have some drug programs in prison in Oklahoma, and they're very good and they're well-intentioned, but there aren't nearly enough of them. At a lot of prisons, they don't have any sort of drug treatment. But for people who are not locked up, when you lock someone up, that means we have to spend $25,000 a year plus the drug rehabilitation. If we can get some rehabilitation outside of the prison system, then we don't have to pay that $25,000 a piece. What we have to pay for is the rehabilitation. It is a great investment in our future, not try to bring them in the court system. We've got enough to do in court.
Let me ask you, John, we've got drug courts in some counties in Oklahoma. How has that experiment worked out?
Well, it's been very successful everywhere that they've done drug court. The one in Oklahoma County is wonderful, and it works very well.
Can you just briefly summarize it for our viewers?
Well, it starts for about a year or a year and a half, and they go to the courthouse every week, and they go before a judge. And
they've been arrested for some drug-related offense.
Yes, lots of drug-related offenses.
But not violent offenses.
Some of them. Well, mostly not violent. And so some people, I think more than I think ought to be in there, are excluded from that particular program. But then they do really well, and they check on them, and they help them get work, and they help them do things. There are a lot of things that they do to bring them back into society. It's a wonderful program, and it works.
John, if drugs were legalized, would it be your position that the crime rate would drop because of drug-induced crimes? I mean, the difficulty I have in trying to understand this position is if someone is on drugs and meth, I mean, you know, what have you, and they're committing criminal acts when it is illegal, what's the difference going to be if it's all made legal? I mean, I don't get the connection there.
Oh, an enormous difference. It'd be the same as alcohol. It'd be the same as alcohol. If you could go and buy drugs anywhere, well, there are two parts of it. First of all, it would make all the prescription drugs cost nothing. You could go and get them. You could get all of any kind of drug, but if you had to have a prescription for it, it could be controlled, and it would do away with these gangsters that are the biggest problem in over 200 cities in America. And I know Mick knows what a problem it is here in Oklahoma City. And it would do away with all the gangsters. It would do away with all the gangsters on the border in Mexico and all the drugs that come in from Canada. There wouldn't be any of that business anymore. And it would free up our justice system. It would save so much money. We could treat people, and we could really make some sort of a meaningful inroad to the drug addiction in America.
Do you not think we'd be increasing the number of drug users?
Oh no, it couldn't get any worse than it is now. Drugs today, since they started the war on drugs, are cheaper and more plentiful than they have been at any other time. And everything else has gone up, all your groceries, everything else. But drugs are cheaper and easier to find and buy.
John Coyle, Mike Mccarvel, we're discussing should drugs be legalized in the United States of America. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be back with another segment right after this.
I'm Beulah Shavney, and I'm an original member of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and I'm Chickasaw. I worked at the Phoenix Indian Hospital for a year, and then there was the war. I felt like it was my duty I wanted in the Army, so I made it, got in, and it was a good feeling to put that uniform on. We were one of a kind that started something and finished it. To see these women go in today, they are really doing a great job. And I'm very proud to look back now and see that I was one of the first ones of the Army that went in. There is just something that stands out about Chickasaw women. They want to go as far as they can go and succeed. I've got to do my best because I'm Chickasaw.
Home values are down in some states, but not in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's home values have increased 4.2% during the past 12 months. Unlike some states where home values have decreased as much as 20%. Good thing you're in Oklahoma. There may be real estate problems in some states, but there has never been a better time than now to buy or sell a home in Oklahoma. One of the most affordable states in the country, Oklahomans are buying and selling homes every day, and an Oklahoma realtor can show you how. Good thing you're in Oklahoma.
Okiwani is an Indian name for a place where children play. When we obtained the camp, we found a lot of oil debris left in the woods. We saw a commercial about how the oil and natural gas industry cleans up old oil well sites. We called the OERB, and they agreed to remove tons of concrete and steel. It didn't cost us a thing. Thousands of children have left their footprints on this land. Thanks to the oil and gas industry, they will for a long time to come.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers with today's guests, John Coyle and Mike Mccarvel. We're discussing the legalization of drugs, the concept, the ideas, what would happen if they were legalized. Mike, medicinal marijuana, the legalization of marijuana, where do you stand on that issue?
Well, personally, I'm opposed to it, but I got to tell you, Mecca, I think it's the racehorse coming down the track. John's got some statistics, I think, that make the point. I can't get the word out, John. Some data that makes the point very well. And John, the medical use of marijuana now authorized in how many states?
Well, it's authorized now in 14 states. And it's really changed its perspective now with President Obama, because he has indicated through his Attorney General that the United States government, the federal government, will no longer interfere with the states that have legalized marijuana for medical purposes.
Now, in the states that have approved it, it's via doctor's prescription. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The doctor prescribes it, and it's very useful, particularly for cancer patients. It decreases the amount of nausea they have because it's very common for them to have nausea and other problems. It also helps increase their appetite so that they can eat. It does a lot of good things for people in pain.
What about recreational uses? Is that legal in many states?
It is legal now in 13 states, have legalized marijuana for personal use, essentially decriminalized it. You may get a ticket for it or something, like you get a traffic ticket.
What have the subsequent trends been? If marijuana is legalized for recreational purposes, have other drug uses increased? Have they decreased? Or are fewer people getting thrown in jail for drug-related crimes?
The gateway argument.
That's a great question. It has not increased the use at all. In fact, California now has had medical marijuana for 10 years. And the drug use in California has decreased in that 10 years. Now, in many other states, it's increased. In Oklahoma, it's 20-fold what it was 10 years ago. In California, it's decreased 10%. So I think it's an important statistic.
So you would say the argument that marijuana is a gateway drug to more harder drugs, you'd say that that's nonsense?
I think
based on the examples that
I think it's the biggest nonsense of all that we have been sold. Everything we've been sold. Marijuana, traditionally, people don't smoke marijuana and go kill someone. They don't do violent acts. They don't do things like people do on alcohol. Alcohol, in my experience, is by far the most dangerous drug. Much more dangerous than heroin or cocaine or marijuana or any other drugs. But just because someone smokes marijuana doesn't mean that it makes them want to use some other drug.
But John, I believe studies have shown that all of the drugs are much more addictive than alcohol or tobacco or caffeine, anything like that.
No, really? That's just not true. Drugs are not more addictive than particularly nicotine. That's the most addictive of all, but certainly alcohol is the biggest problem in America. And alcohol is the most dangerous drug because it makes people violent. It makes people hurt other people and do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. Marijuana doesn't do that.
John, if alcohol is the biggest problem we've got in the area, what would you suggest we do about it?
Well, if we had some money to deal with it and to treat the people who are addicted to alcohol, but we don't have any money because we're too busy locking up all the people who have marijuana. And primarily the people who are arrested for marijuana are young people, people under 30. So the war on drugs is really a war on the young people in America. It's not just a war on drugs. It's an attempt to destroy young people and to put more people in prison. Because what's happened in the 8 years since Mike and I were here before, and what's happened and evolved over this time, is that more and more people are in prison for drugs. And they're very powerful people who, it's the largest industry in the world is locking people up for drugs. The largest in the world. Bigger than our Defense Department, bigger than anything, is the people who keep people in prison in America. And the prison guards, the people who construct them, the people who supply the food. It's big business now.
Methamphetamine, heroin, these very addictive drugs. How would we be a better country if those were legalized?
Well, I think we could do something to treat them, but just locking these people up and paying $25,000 a year to lock them up has not solved anything. In the war on drugs started when I became a lawyer.
That day?
Well, about that day. About that day.
That doesn't sound like a coincidence to
I
me.
can't tell you how many things have become illegal since I've been a lawyer. Not that all that's bad for business, but it sure, I don't think is good for America. And I've seen it in the justice system all of my life.
John, we know that we can't outlaw or alter personal responsibility in human behavior. And I think that kind of gets all wrapped up in this discussion about drugs and whether they ought to be legalized or continue to be illegal. Do you, in the case of marijuana, legalized marijuana, do you sense that there's change somehow in the personality of the users or their attitude or that kind of thing? Or do you think it really all is legitimate medical marijuana?
No, I think for the most part it's legitimate medical marijuana when a doctor prescribes it. I mean, there are so many things that medical marijuana is good for and can help people with that it's really a very important medicine now. And I mean, it's been proven in study after study, because all the 10 years in California they've proven that it helps people. And that's why other states have decided to allow their sick people the opportunity to use the marijuana. But it's not altering people. In fact, in that one state in California, drug use has declined.
Mike, would you characterize the war on drugs for the past 30 years as a success or a failure?
I think by and large, and in a way I'm going to agree with John, I think by and large it's probably been a failure. We simply aren't, if we're going to continue to make drugs illegal, we're losing this war. Obviously we're losing it at our southern border with the country of Mexico. The flow of drugs coming across the border obviously has reached fairly astounding levels. Even 8 years ago, we probably could not have envisioned where it is today. And I think one of the biggest problems in this country today is illicit drug use, clearly. And unfortunately, it most affects those in the inner city, and it's a blight on the country. And Lord knows, I don't know what the answer is. But we've got to change the way we do things somehow.
Well, John, are there any law enforcement people out there who agree with your positions? I mean,
There are a lot of
them.
There
are attorney generals, there are district attorneys who believe in the legalization of drugs?
Yes, there are people all over the country who believe in it, and there's a specific, it's Cops for Legalization. There's such an organization, and there are people, police chiefs from all over the country, people involved in it who very much believe in that and think it's important to make changes and to start with marijuana and then decide what else we can do. And I think you would see, for one thing, a lot better relationship between the police and the public, because police officers in America are under a lot of pressure to make these drug arrests. And it's such an enormous part of what they do that there is a whole generation of young people out there who the police have been confrontational with. And now it's a generation of them who don't think, as I did when I was a youngster, that police are their friend.
Well, I think they've inherited that attitude from their parents in many cases,
In many
unfortunately.
cases, that's right.
Mike, final word on the show?
As I said, just to reiterate, I think somehow this country, as a nation, we've got to come to grips with this drug problem. In my mind, legalization of it is not the proper way to address it. Additional law enforcement, perhaps, but we've got to come to a better understanding of what motivates drug users, aside from the normal ones, John, that we might throw out, greed, that kind of thing. But we've got to come to grips with the problem.
We're going to have to call that a truce. John, thanks for coming back. Mike,
Thank
as
you.
always.
8 years from now, we're coming back.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for having me.
We'll book it.
It's a date. Kent and I'll have a final word after this.
It's time to meet the new people in power.
The people responsible for our energy future.
It's you.
It's me. All of us together.
From now on, we're the people in power.
OG&E will supply the power.
It's how we apply the power that counts.
We've got to use electricity smarter,
Wiser.
cleaner,
Better.
So we've got to be informed,
Equipped.
prepared.
committed.
From now on.
Look, nobody wants to waste energy.
Nobody wants to build new power plants.
Nobody wants to pay more for electricity.
But nobody wants to give up their way of life.
We don't have to.
If we just use positive energy together.
I'll take advantage of off-peak hours.
That means cutting energy use from 1 to 7 every day.
Every day.
I'm going to sign up for more and more wind power.
We'll take advantage of the high-tech tools coming soon from OG&E.
OG&E can't do it alone.
It's you and OG&E working together.
Find dozens of ways you can help at OGE.com.
A positive energy future is in our power. Together.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of the verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Thanks to John Coyle and Mike Mccarvel. Mike has an interesting blog about politics and daily commentary. If you just Google Mike Mccarvel, M-C-C-A-R-V-I-L-L-E, you'll find it. And Kent and I'll be back next week with another show. We will see you then. Thanks for watching us on The Verdict.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.